MM Talk. We're your host, Eddie Marmolejo.
And Jaime Moreno.
California has gone bat crazy. I am not joking around. We're at a point where property owners are exchanging rent pay for sexual favors. What can go wrong there? Also, we went from having a surplus to a deficit. My goodness, what happened? And we're now
desperate times call for desperate measures.
And we are the only state in the country that has rolled out a stimulus package to undocumented workers, illegal aliens, or whatever you want to call them. We'll talk about that. But also, were these measures even necessary, being locked down? Have experts changed their minds? We're going to look at two articles where the so-called experts are questioning everything that's going on. And we're also going to talk about how events in the past really give us a difference, I guess, generational difference between how we acted then to our pandemic and we're acting the way we are now. And finally, Joe Biden. Joe Biden, the voice of honesty, apparently does not need the Latino vote to win the presidential campaign. We're gonna look into that. So it's a lot of topics we gotta get into. So Jaime.
He said Joe Biden, the voice of honesty. I'm sorry. What was I? Oh, please don't forget to share, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. We're bringing more content, more information out there. We also want to get you guys informed to the topic. Remember, we're giving you factual information. We're giving you analysis of what's really going on, despite all the noise of the headlines. So please tell your family, friends to subscribe, tune us in, share our material. You're more free to share. And also, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can get updated on the entire episodes that we have here on MM Talk.
All right, so let's dive into the California. So, right, and you're going to get into it in a second. So California has now officially entered phase 2 of the reopening process. So, Jaime, what's going on there?
So phase 2 of the California reopening process. So that pretty much means that everything is the same. We still continue to practice social distancing. We still have to wear masks when we're out in public. There's going to be small openings, a very limited amount of businesses. And that's pretty much just restaurants or buildings or businesses that can do curbside or can do delivery services. Mm-hmm. However, what we are noticing in California, even that's a statewide, right? So we're still in phase 2. We still have to wait 14 days to see how everything goes. Make sure there's no increase in COVID infections, no increase in COVID deaths. Now that number is still debatable. Like here in MM Talk, we keep saying that the numbers are inflated, and the reports, we're not saying that they're lying, but they're just inflated, meaning that, like we said before, people who are dying with pre-existing conditions and happen to have COVID are reported as COVID deaths, right? They're not reported as death by heart attack or death by cancer or death by another thing, right? So, like we said, that's still inflated because we still haven't seen the numbers of COVID-only deaths. So that's a whole different debate. Also, what's going on in phase 2 is a lot of counties, like we said here in MM Talk, a lot of counties are actually going to reopen based on their own data and not just the state. So now, as we said here in MM Talk, and Eddie made it clear last time, is each county has to go based on their actual numbers, right? Like here in Riverside County, we're the second largest with the infection, but yet, in counties and other counties, they don't have as much. San Diego doesn't even have large number of cases like here in Riverside County, right, where we live at. So San Diego is able to modify their stay-at-home orders to meet their county's necessities. And Riverside County is doing the same thing. So now we're seeing in phase two, counties reopening based on their own data. And that's really good because just because something terrible is happening in one county doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen in another county. Or, you know, a restriction in LA County is not, can't always be applied in another county in California, right? Where they don't have enough cases like LA or Riverside. So that's good news. That's actually something we advocate here in MM Talk. Each county has to open up based on their own data. So that's always good. So we'll see what happens with phase two. It looks like we're going to move to phase three sooner than later. Like I said, a lot of business owners are pretty much upset that they're unable to work. A lot of small business owners, entrepreneurs, gig workers, and you hear the news media telling you about like, oh, all these protesters just want haircuts. They don't care about your health. The news media wants you at home. The news media wants you to stay at home. But we as Americans, rational Americans, right? We all know, we as regular people understand the necessity of going to work, right? To be able to feed our families and provide for ourselves. So it's not just business owners who are mad, actual workers who need to go back to work, because sooner or later, either if you get an unemployment, which is great, it's gonna run out soon. I mean, this unemployment benefit is gonna run out next month. So either you save up your money now and hope you get a good stack, or you're gonna run out of money, and what's gonna happen? You need to go back to work, right? So this all has a time frame. This all has a limited time frame. It's something we here in Never Talk spoke about. So that's pretty much what's going on in California with phase two. And also, I just pretty much mentioned what we're looking at in the future. But for now, California is going to go phase three. I think the governor is looking at reopening the state as soon as possible, especially now that we have a deficit and that we have, we're going to do some budget cuts to our state budget, which Eddie and I will discuss in a little bit.
We went from a supposed surplus to a deficit. And now we're talking about cutting welfare to kids, state employees, 10% cut pay. The governor's taking a 10% cut pay. Talking about cuts to firefighters and our schools. And that was an interesting one when we came across school cuts. Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. That was an interesting one, the school cuts. Because what happened? I mean, there was something in the recent election that California wanted to pass.
Last year, was it last year or the year before?
18? I think it was 18.
It's actually 19.
It was 19,
this past
right?
November.
Right.
This past November, there was a ballot initiative called Prop 13. And if you all remember, it was a school bond. Because, our California schools need more money.
Right.
We need billions of dollars, right? And here in MM Talk, we broke it down. We were against the bond. We were against increasing taxes for schools. And the interesting part about this budget cuts that the governor is now proposing, how much is the money? How much money is he trying to cut from schools, Eddie?
Let me get that number real quick. It's approximately, where are you? Oh, man. Numbers. Here we go. Where'd it go? Cut for schools, $19 billion.
And that's the funny part we see here at Talk, because they were trying to get a $15 billion bond last November for schools. So did they? So it's kind of like, I don't know if it's a gotcha move or gotcha scenario, or we got you in a lie, or something's not adding up, okay? Because Prop 13, maybe you guys remember, it was a bond for $15 billion to go to schools, all right, to rebuild more equipment, so on and so forth, repair old schools, and, da-da-da. Now the governor's trying to cut $19 billion from school funding. So you needed $15 billion like 3 months, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, okay, 7 months ago, you want to be more accurate number. Now you're saying, oh, we don't need $19 billion for schools. We could cut them. So in my conspiracy idea in mind right now is, so you're cutting school budget now at $19 billion. Does that mean that in November or maybe in 2 years, we might get another ballot initiative saying that we need funding for schools?
Yeah. You pay more taxpayer money. That's
okay. So we'll keep an eye on that. But keep that in mind now, and hopefully you don't forget by the time that comes out. And there's another bond after this for schools, asking for money for schools, after he just cut funding for schools.
Dude, man. Oh, man. and that's where a lot of people are upset with what I'm going to talk about real quick. The whole stimulus for undocumented immigrants. Yeah, I understand it's only 75 million, right? It's not the massive budget cuts that we're seeing in other sectors, but the point is it's still $75 million, right? That's the thing. You're we can get into the whole whites are wrong and all that, but that's one thing that we get it. It's wrong, but what it's even more, I believe, more insulting to the undocumented community is the rollout of this program and basically how trash it's really is. It's simply trash, and I hate to say it, we told you so, because here in MMM Talk, when we talked about how would you roll it out at the federal program, you were going to face some challenges. And on day one, Jaime, every single thing that we talked about on MM Talk came into fruition. Let's begin with the number of phone calls, okay? Chirla, which is one of the organizations handling the funds, right, said they received 1 million phone calls. This was on Telemundo. 1 million phone calls on the first day, right? So this was in Telemundo and El Rojo Vivo. Okay, we'll post a link to all you that speak Spanish. We'll post a link in the comments. Description, so you guys can go watch it. But they said 1 million phone calls on the first day. So you're gonna see the similarities, right? When a lot of us went on unemployment, oh my God, the system crashed and all that, and I was like, okay, that's fine. I mean, that was expected, right?
The funny thing is that if you guys remember that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I didn't hear you were talking. I guess there was a bad connection on my side.
No,
didn't mean to interrupt. But can I just say one thing real quick now that I have the mic? To remember that we here in MM Talk clearly says there's 2 million undocumented immigrants in California, as we know of, right? It could be more, it could be less, but pretty much more. You know, it could be more illegal. It's 2 million. So on the first day, 1 million people called. That's half of the undocumented population in California. Half.
I don't mean to laugh,
50%.
and that's not the worst part, Jaime, because remember, it was expected, right? A lot of people were going to call a lot of that. And it was true when we applied for unemployment, or those people that applied for unemployment insurance, right? It was the same thing. We couldn't get we couldn't get to a representative. The system was overwhelmed. Same thing. That was not the interesting part. Like you just pointed out, half of the undocumented population called. This program is only designed to help 150,000 people. What are the other 850,000 people going to do?
I don't know, Eddie. That's the question. And like we said here in MM Talk, we said, if we're going to do this, do it for everyone.
Right. Like if you're going to go, if you're all like, oh, I'm for the people, go all in, and you did it. And here's the worst part. Something that Rojo Vivo also revealed, that they face challenges in obtaining the money, right? And what was the challenge? That they could not get employment verification from their employer because they were too afraid what maybe ICE or other immigration services may do to their company. What did we tell you here in MM Talk? What did we tell you here in MM Talk? If you have a fake social security number, you're going to face the challenge of, if you're borrowing one, for that person to give you the money, they're going to rat you out, or that employers are not going to give you any sort of documentation where it says you work there or you actually work there, and how are you going to get those taxes? So here we go on day one. This plan was a disaster from the get-go. And no, we're not advocating for helping out illegals. What we're talking about is what a trash program this was from its inception. From the
And it's
moment
a
it was
trash
thought of,
program
yeah, it was, and it's
disguised as heroic, is disguised as hero, as someone who is pro-immigrant, as a champion of undocumented rights. That was the facade. That was the image. That was the propaganda that was portrayed. And like Eddie said, is trash from the beginning. And we said it was gonna be
really
trash.
insulting, and it's really insulting because I was having discussions and I asked people, what would have been better, right? For Newsom to get involved directly with government funding, or just certainly, or do what LA did, make the public fund website, and then just have people go donate. Because it worked in LA, people just started donating, and then they helped out a certain number of undocumented workers. But people were willing to donate, so you didn't have to worry about taxpayer money. You didn't have to worry about any of that. Now here's Newsom announcing budget cuts, announcing that he can't afford to pay firefighters, but he's going to pay illegal aliens, right? And as a political stunt move, they're going to call him hero regardless, right? Because, I mean, that's how they roll, right? Oh, yeah, boy, he still helped 150,000 people. Well, why did 1 million people call then? And what are you going to tell those 850,000 people that are not going to receive aid? So I asked those people and those organizations that were all promoting this, what now? What now? So it's going to be interesting. We're going to keep on top of this whole deficit, this whole immigration plan for illegals. But honestly, it's a slap on the face. And on day one, everything that we said in talk came to be. It was a slap.
It's pretty sad because, I mean, this can be, I mean, in the news, in the clip from Telemundo and Rojo Vivo, you see people upset that they weren't able to get a call, right? You see people upset that they weren't able to get the documentation needed to prove they were laid off, right? Because their employers, like Eddie said, they're not going to get in trouble with the law, too. They, you know, in California, it's bad to pay people under the table, right? But yet they turn a cheek, right, or turn an eye. Now they're mad about that. Now imagine finding out, right, that you didn't make the list of 150,000 people, right? Imagine how angry these people are going to be when they find out, oh, you know what, we ran out of money, or you know what, you can't qualify, or you know what, you're not going to get it. You know how angry it is if 1 million people called. Like Eddie said, 850,000 are not going to get money. So there's going to be 850,000 people, right, pissed once they find out they're not going to get any money, right? So, like Eddie said, we're going to keep an eye on it. We're laughing because it's sad at the hypocrisy of the Democratic Party, the hypocrisy of this governor, right? And the hypocrisy of Latino leaders, right, who are going behind this man saying, oh yeah, he's the hero of Latinos or undocumented immigrants. He cares for us. When they themselves know, or will soon realize, if they don't know yet, that this was just a scam to begin with, right? Because you're going to leave out a lot of people. You're not going to help everyone who needs it. And if 1 million people called, 1 million people first day, that means that you should have thought this through, right? Instead of pulling this stunt. And hopefully the Latino community can realize that, you know what, even though the Democrats might get that propaganda that they're always for you, in reality, they're trying to keep you down, trying to keep the raza down.
But we'll see the reactions. But let's move on to our next topic here. And it's basically, we're going to try to answer, were these measures even necessary, right? To stay at home. I know we talked this in a previous topic, and we gave certain examples, and we talked about numbers, projections, and all that, and the contradictions that were coming to be. And we kept hearing, "Are you a medical expert? Why should we take you seriously? I mean, are you a medical expert? No. Medical Talk is not full of medical experts, but we can read papers on medical experts and what they're saying. Okay, we can analyze
And
that.
in Spanish, we got a coco.
Yeah. Now medical experts once again are changing their minds. And we're going to dive into 2 articles that clearly demonstrate that maybe we took this way out of proportion. Okay, we'll leave it to your guys' judgment, but it really solidifies an argument that we kept repeating over and over and over again in MM Talk. But before we get to those articles, I want to talk about a pandemic that happened in 68, 69. The Hong Kong, it was called the Hong Kong virus. Okay. It was the Hong Kong virus.
Racist.
It also comes from China. My goodness. Oh, but this was British. This was British controlled Hong Kong. So let us be clear that there was no communist.
Oh.
Okay, so let us.
Sorry.
Okay, but here's the thing. The New York Post had an article a couple days ago where they talked about it, and it's funny how this article mentions that in 68, 69. We had Woodstock, right? We had Woodstock. We had Apollo 8. Everybody was living life as normal. Everybody was not practicing social distancing, right? And the numbers, right, for this pandemic were not something that was something to ignore. Had this pandemic been reported today, my goodness, it probably would have been the same situation that we are. The New York Times at the time called it the worst pandemic in U.S. history after the Spanish flu. Right, the numbers were also up there. Like it was over 100,000 deaths. Lyndon Johnson and Humphrey, right, Vice President Humphrey, were also infected. So just imagine that, right? Imagine that. And the news cycle that you saw at the time was not even making a big deal out of it. I mean, if you look through the article, it was they said that in some newspapers it was buried on page 24. And it was just talked about how some people couldn't even get married because of the virus. And it's like, why some police officers they didn't even go to work because they just called in sick because they had the Hong Kong virus.
Got the flu.
Yeah, they had the flu, right? And here we are 52 years later, right? The article does point out that the current projections will show that this will supersede H3N2, right? That's what the Hong Kong virus was called. But you didn't see draconian measures. You didn't see stay-at-home orders. You saw people actually outside, not practicing social distancing. And then I was talking to Jaime, so what's the difference? Like, right, what's the difference? What's the difference between that and today? Well, Jaime's like, well, Eddie, you only had three channels. ABC, CBS, and probably NBC. I don't know what, I mean, I didn't have at the time. I know CBS and ABC.
Yeah, it was 3 channels.
Yeah, he only had like 3 channels. An excellent point. And I said, yeah, and that's probably why, right? I honestly am attributed to 2 things. The guy who's in the White House and the media who dislikes him. So they're going to play a 24-hour cycle about projections and fears and keeping you at home and keeping you safe and keeping you this and keeping you that. And it's actually what Jaime's going to talk about. I said, it's actually making you weak. It's making you weak. Instead of being outside and obtaining what the antivirals and boosting your immune system to fight this thing off, you're actually being made more weak. So Jaime, talk about that real quick.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk more of the generational idea, right? I think that's because we were reading this article and it's comparing pandemics in the past, right, and now. So what we realize is that we're I think Eddie and I, and maybe if you're our age, you know, in your late 20s.
If you're still 20s. In the millennial generation, now we have Generation Z. Right? If you're a millennial, yes, you qualify for what we're going to say.
Pretty much. We came from, I think we're one of the last generations that still played outside growing up. Still played bikes, still went outside and played hide and seek. We still climbed trees. We still went on adventures. I mean, yeah, we had Nintendo came out, PlayStation, Xboxes, right? And, you know, we had, you know, the Game Boys coming out and the Game Boy DS and Nintendo DS and the TSP and all those, things, cell phones. I mean, I think we're the generation that we were to get cell phones, right? Nokias, and then we went to a Razor phone, which is really popular. Now iPhone, right? Even with all that technology advancements, we still played outside. We still got hurt. We still got dirty. And the generation behind us, they were the same way. I mean, for them, death was normal. Death was part of life. Death was part of survival. And the article points out, when the Hong Kong flu came out, people survived World War II, I mean, Vietnam, Korea, I mean, when the virus came out, we were in the Vietnam War, literally fighting the Vietnam War, right? So death was normal. There was still, no vaccines for some of the common diseases, measles and the cold and all that stuff. We were still trying to get that under control, but we didn't end the society. We didn't end our way of life over some virus. Society back then was like, you know what, it's gonna happen, and they went outside. They had, what's called the herd immunity. There was, you had chickenpox, some parents wanted you to get chickenpox early on to get it out of the way. You played outside, you got sick, you got better. Some people didn't make it, some people did, but that was their way of life. And I think now, either our generation, millennials, or as we're getting older, or the generation after us, we're starting to change the way of thought. We are locked inside. We're more inside. The kids are more in video games. I hardly see kids playing outside. I rarely see them. If I do, it's like noise it's like music to my ears. Like, oh, there's kids out here, It brings me back memories. And I don't know if that happens to you out there, our viewers, if that's the case with you. I mean, I have nephews and nieces who are in, just on the phone. I mean, like, ride a bike, get outside, scratch yourself, and I noticed some of the parents too, they use this mechanism, phone, tablet technology to babysit. And I think our idea now here is that we're so overprotective. I think the new generation of ideas, we're overprotective. We want nothing to happen. If you think about it, if you sit back and think about it, just sit back, whatever your political view may be, whether it be conservative or liberal, progressive or, statist, whatever you want to say, but just stay back and just think of all the culture wars and political battles we have about censoring, about Facebook censoring what's good content and bad content, what's safe space, which is what is hate speech, what is good, what is bad, can you go outside, can you not go outside, can kids go back to school, should they have social distancing? I think we've become so overprotective to the point that we're making ourselves weaker instead of stronger. And I think that's the generational change. I mean, our parents, even us who are millennials, still remember, you got sick, you got hurt, and you survived. And I think now the future generation is more overprotective. And instead of being a positive, good thing, it's actually making us worse. And I think that's why we were so easily willing to just stay at home, right? And just say, yeah, we'll stay at home, because this virus is coming, right? But as we see studies and articles and hear them talk, it's actually worse. And everyone talked from the beginning, we were against this whole lockdown, stay-at-home order. We were totally against it from the beginning, right? We disagreed. We obeyed because, you have to obey because everyone has, but we were against it from the beginning. So it's also interesting how the generational shifts, I think, an idea of we rather have security over freedom, right? And the generation before us were more about freedom over security, right? They were more aware of stuff happens. Life is unexpected. The world is unexpected, right? And it's going to happen. You either survive or you just, you lose, right? And I think now the generations coming up is more of safety over freedom at all costs. And that's literally, if you look at what's going on now in our state of the COVID-19, it's far worse, right? It's far more damaging than the virus itself. And that's my perspective on the comparisons from that article. And Eddie's going to go ahead and talk about
yeah. And it's funny.
The reporting, the way it's reported.
It's funny how you ended that, because these next two articles basically tell us that we should go back to that generation.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, and I don't mean, no, this does not mean bring back the hippies and have Woodstock, right? Okay.
And no, not bring back racism, because remember,
Not
there's
bring
gonna be
back
someone who say
racism.
that.
I mean, yeah, and don't give me the whole Lyndon Johnson, what is it?
Segregation.
The welfare program. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about essentially that we took these measures too far, right? Because we lost sight of the objective. We lost sight of the objective. That was to basically, what both articles point out, to flatten the curve, right? To flatten the curve and minimize the death of COVID-19. And that and a lot of people talk about what I like to call the goalpost argument. You went from that, right, to, oh, we have to ensure that hospitals have enough supplies and all that, to now we have to wait to a vaccine. And that was never the goal. So we're gonna go into these two articles. We're gonna dive into these next two articles. One was written by the New York Times. One was written by The Hill. Right. And I'm gonna start with the one in The Hill, because the one in The Hill is basically tells you how we need to move away from essentially move away from the science, but implement science into public policy, which is something that, right, has been, that you don't hear in the media. It's always, we just got to reopen, and oh no, we just got to close, and no, we got to stay home. No, listen to what the science says, and based on that, you create a public policy, right? So, so here's the article. Is by Dr. Scott Atlas, right? This is an opinion piece. So, and Scott Atlas is a senior fellow at Stanford University's Hoover Institution and former chief of neuroradiology at Stanford University Medical Center. Okay, and the title of the article is "Adding to Dr. Fauci's Diagnosis: Critical Case for Ending Our Shutdown." Okay, so I'm not gonna go through the whole article, right? There's a lot of points. Okay, but here are the basic bullet points. Policymakers and the public have now received several key messages that are critical to alleviate fear and guide safe reopening of society. That has led to a gross failure in policy at the state level. A lot of things that are going on in the news are at the state level. Michigan, California, New York. Okay? There has been a failure to remind everyone that the stated goal of policy, total lockdown and whole population isolation, has been accomplished in most of the United States, including the epicenter of New York. Specifically, two curves, hospitalization per day and deaths per day, have flattened. The goal was never to prevent hospital overcrowding, and aside from a few in the New York area, hospitals were never overcrowded. Today, most hospitals stand underfilled, necessitating layoffs of personnel. For example, California. A lot of the reasons we didn't even go into phase two is like, well, we don't have PPE gear, and we're waiting for a peak, and we need to have more personnel. Well, projections, like I said, are telling you that you're not going to meet those numbers. So why are we still advocating that? More importantly, it was never a policy goal to eliminate all cases of COVID-19. That is impossible, unnecessary, and illogical, where 99% of the infected people have no significant illness from it. Okay. There has, let me see what's another one. It points out a lot of failures. I want to highlight the biggest ones. Okay. We must not forget that total lockdown, not the virus, is generating catastrophic harms. Restricting other medical care and installing fear in the public is creating massive health disaster. In addition to serve economic harms that could generate a world poverty crisis. In the United States alone, 150,000 new cancer cases arise every month among patients, and most have not been seen. Of the 650,000 U.S. cancer patients receiving chemotherapy, an estimated half are missing their treatments. Half urgent care patients are not seeking medical attention. 2/3 physical therapy is not being administered. Transplants from living donors are down almost 85%. Emergency stroke evaluations are down 40%. And that doesn't include the 2/3 to 3/4 of people who are skipping cancer screenings, and the more of half of children who are failing to receive vaccinations, all pointing to a future health disaster. Here's the real failure. Public policy must never be one-dimensional. It can never be foisted on people without careful consideration of its consequences, including the harms of well-intentioned attempt to solve the initial problem. We said it here over and over in Talk. Fine, if your intention of the lockdown was to stop the spread of this virus and try to contain it, we'll abide by that. But we have surpassed that, and this is what this article is telling you right here. True leadership, okay, demands far more than empathy and caution. Leaders are expected to rationally integrate the evidence, even if complicated, and then apply policies using common sense and a knowledge-based perspective. Another thing we have said here in Talk: if your projections are not being met, and if and the data points out that maybe you can start loosening the restrictions, you probably should have done that. Conveying rational thinking is how to reassure the public and instill confidence in a chosen pathway. The total lockdown may have been justified at the start of the pandemic, but it must end now, smartly, without irrational, unnecessary requirements, contrary to the medical science, common sense, and logic. The goal of strict isolation was accomplished in the overwhelming majority of places. We have directed data on risk and extensive experience, individual as a nation, with managing it. And even as new cases arise, we know that gradually relaxing total isolation will lead to more infections, but that's acceptable, given that we know whom to protect, and this disease is not harmful to the vast majority of the infected people, right? As I and others have written, the way to prevent more death and severe illness is to finally strictly protect those who are vulnerable. It is time to stop the cycle of becoming frantic as we see what are totally expected changes in hypothetical projections. Instead, let's use empirical evidence and established medical science. The time of failed leadership must end, or we are committing national suicide. Projection.
Pretty much everything we said here, and well, not everything, but to hear him talk, we're against this for this many reasons. We thought of more the economic side, right? Feeding, the bills, going to work and all that stuff, the economic collapse. And this doctor brings up another area that we maybe didn't think about at the time, but it makes sense. I mean, you're talking about people not going to see a doctor. People aren't going to see a dentist. People aren't able to go get screens who probably are sick from other stuff, aren't seeing the medical provider because of COVID. And like we said, we just focused everything on COVID that we stopped everything else. Like all of a sudden, no other diseases matter. No other infections matter. No other medical problems matter. Only COVID, only COVID, only COVID, only COVID. So there's going to be, like the doctor said, and he pretty much predicted, or he's predicting, that we're going to have an increase of bad health and an increase of like diseases, but not COVID diseases, but people who didn't go see the doctor on time,
right?
People who didn't get their treatment on time, people who are backlogged on their treatment, people who, because we stopped everything just for this COVID-19, that we're pretty much backtracked a lot of stuff. Not backtracked, but we're behind. We're backlogged on a lot of stuff. Backlogged on medical care, backlogged on work, backlogged on treatment, backlogged on vaccinations on kids. I mean, the article clearly says, there's probably babies being born right now or under a year who need vaccinations, probably haven't gotten vaccination because don't go to the hospital. Don't get near a doctor. Everything's closed. Clinics are closed, right? And I mean, in them talk, we were so against this lockdown order because we were looking at the ramifications in economics. We were looking at ramifications in human interaction. I mean, you can't keep people locked up. You can't have people sitting at home not doing anything, right? But the doctor also points out another thing that we agree with now too is that, there's also medical stuff that are being backlogged, right? And yet liberals and progressives is stay at home together, stay at home, we're safer. Right. Well, we're setting ourselves up. Yeah, we're setting ourselves up for health problems down the road. We're setting ourselves up for economic problems down the road. We're setting ourselves up for other problems down the road. I mean, it's like we're setting ourselves for other things. You know, we're just pretty much waiting for worse, right? And it's insane. And I mean, this is a Stanford guy. You know, this is not even like
let's be clear. This is a
U-Haul.
public.
This isn't. What's that girl's name from the Toretta to what's her name? Thunberg.
Oh, Greta Thunberg.
Yeah, all of a sudden she's on the CNN town hall about COVID-19, and she's an expert panelist.
No, this is a public health expert, Jaime. We went to the source, public health expert.
I know we did, but according to CNN, you know, a little 13-year-old girl.
Oh, I know.
Is as an expert, you know, but you know, we're hearing them talk, are looking at articles, reading from other experts and what they're reporting, from doctors on what they're reporting on the ground, right? And the media is telling you, don't listen to those people, listen to us, right?
Right. That's the thing.
It's like a big propaganda machine, dude. Like they're supposed to be the light, the hope, the truth in darkness, but yet they choose to focus on one thing, right, and not give us a holistic picture of possibilities. Why? Because, in my opinion, it comes down to control and other things. But that's a whole different subject.
That's the thing too. And this is the people President Trump is listening to, the so-called experts, the so-called people that said stay at home. Mm-hmm. The people that said, "Oh yeah, we need to shut the country down." Mm-hmm. To stop and I get it.
He didn't agree with it.
And he disagreed with it. He said, "Okay, yeah, I'll listen to you experts because you're telling me to stop this as fast as we can. We need to shut down. I'll listen to you." Mm-hmm. But then it became something else, vaccine, and then something else, and something else, and something else, and something. And people are just like, "Nah, it's not. That's the thing." And speaking of which, right? Here's the other article. It was written by Marty Makary, and Marty Makary is a surgeon and professor of health policy at Johns Hopkins. Jaime, where does the media get the most information from regarding COVID?
According to the media and the real experts, based on the media's qualification of real experts, I'm still wondering why Greta Thunberg is an expert on anything, you know? But anyways, they still call her an expert, right? But everyone else is an idiot. The media, right? The media is using Johns Hopkins numbers, right, as the real coronavirus reporting, right? They say that it's more honest than the CDC and that it's more accurate than the CDC and more accurate of it, right? So they base all their information on Johns Hopkins University, right? So the irony is that Johns Hopkins doctor is saying, y'all went too far with this. Y'all need to chill.
Yeah, so the title of the article, and again, this is in the New York Times, is "How to Reopen America Safely," with the subheadline, "Months ago, a call for a long lockdown. Now we must minimize collateral damage." Okay. Mm-hmm. So I'll try to get through as quick as I can. It says, in late February, as data of the coronavirus pandemic continued to unfold, I started making calls to friends and family to prepare them. I told them to get ready, to hunker down for 3 months. For many then, it was hard to believe that a virus we couldn't much see evidence of, less understand, would require us to shut down our country. I also spoke with CEOs, governors, urging them to close non-essential businesses, to enact stay-at-home orders to stop the spread of the virus. Other public health advocates called for the same. And fortunately, government and business leaders responded. Their actions saved hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives, and spared American hospitals the horrors of rationing care. Shutting down was the right policy at the time. As circumstances have evolved, so has my thinking. We have survived the surge in hospitalized cases and suffered an immense economic trauma. The full lockdown made sense weeks ago, but that situation is changing, and more data on the virus are now available to inform our next steps. The choice before us isn't fully locked down or totally reopen. Many argue as though those are the only two options. As a physician, I firmly believe that the primary goal of a reopening strategy should be to maximize the number of lives saved. But virus mitigation can take many forms, ranging from effective to excessive. extreme forms of mitigation can have diminishing returns. Projections of a death toll produced by the current economic shutdown are often politically motivated, but the effects on human life are real.
Mm-hmm.
In April, the United Nations World Food Program reported 250 million people face starvation as a result of the economic impact of COVID-19. In America, local food banks are already congested with record wait times. There are other serious consequences of continuing stay-at-home orders and prolonging economic disruption. Deferred medical care, mental health problems, domestic violence, and one of the biggest pre-COVID-19 public health problems in the United States, loneliness, are all magnified by in-home sheltering. The economic and public health harm associated with sheltering is yet to be fully measured. At the same time, the coronavirus will persist. We must take proper care in how we reopen, lest we discount human life in the race to prosper. That would worsen already troubling trends given that COVID-19 disproportionately affects disadvantaged communities, depending on public health, transit, and in congested living conditions. Our path to reopen should protect those at high risk. The current normal with economic anxiety and skyrocketing unemployment and social isolation can't carry on. We should work towards a new status quo until there's a viable mass-produced therapeutic. So what does the new status quo look like? It looks different in different parts of the country. Not all reopenings are created equal. Areas with continuing outbreaks or rising cases should postpone non-essential activity, and those with declining case trends should engage in practices. He goes on talking about masks, right? And basically, yeah, but the Chinese got it right, but not everybody really needs a mask because certain masks don't really help you out with the coronavirus. How about spending more time outside? Since April, we've learned about indoor versus outdoor transmission of the coronavirus. Early on, we closed parks, told people to stay inside their homes, but studies have since shown that being outdoors with a proper distancing carries a lower risk of getting the infection than being indoors. Businesses must adapt. This is the big one for us, right? It talks about grocery stores and how they adapted by placing social distancing guidelines, protecting what do they call it here, the plastic barriers. And it says by adhering to distancing and hygiene standards, these small businesses, right, can do the same, unless it's not feasible for them to do so. Unless it's not feasible for them to do so, businesses should open up. They can adapt in this environment. And they talk about how grocery store did these measures during the peaks of this virus. Prioritizing safeguarding nursing homes. These are the people most affected, right? The elderly with pre-existing conditions are the most affected. Finally, it says protect those at high risks. The data show that with pre-existing medical conditions such as diabetes, lung disease, or weakened immune systems are among the most vulnerable. Based on the degree of the risk and the prevalence of the virus in the region, we should advise the high-risk individuals, particularly the elderly, to avoid interactions with others until the risk of the contagion is extremely low. This approach aligns with the White House return to work roadmap, shelters high-risk individuals until phase 3, even if many businesses are reopened. Early on, we did not quite know what we were dealing with, but now we have better information. We should use a more surgical approach to fight the virus and minimize the damage. In English, that means we could have stayed open this entire time, had we stuck with hygiene, protect those that would have been affected the most, and the country would have been, guess what?
Fine.
Still open, running as usual. You could have been outside. You could have enjoyed the days at the beach, right? But we didn't. We locked up. And now the country is in a recession. Let's just call it for what it is. It's an economic recession. California is broke. For crying out loud, I just mentioned that property owners are exchanging sexual favors for rent. But let's get on to this last topic real quick. Joe Biden. No, like I said, it was not another gaffe. It's simply that his campaign, and not his campaign, but those that are analyzing his campaign.
Yeah, his campaign.
Was it his campaign?
Yeah, his campaign people said that, right? Well, it's just campaign people and other
No,
experts.
it can't be okay.
That's
So
what
his
I mean.
okay, you're right. Yeah, his campaign people and other people that are analyzing his campaign, I basically said that the Latino vote does not matter. Don't even know what the
In other
strategy.
words, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. No,
And one way I phrase it, Treddy, is like, we don't need Latinos to win. Then Joe Biden campaign straight out said, we don't need Latinos to win victory in November. We don't need them.
And it's
wow.
funny. And for me
Slap in the
personally,
face.
for me personally, it came at a funny time because at the time of this article, I am not kidding. When Jaime posted and he showed it to me, I was scrolling to Instagram and I literally see that an organization was going to have a Zoom conference or I don't know, a Zoom conference or live stream, and it was Latinos for Biden. and I started laughing. And I started laughing. I'm like, are you kidding me? So here we are, hearing from the campaign, right? And the articles from Politico, and they point out, well, we don't even know how he's going to reach Latinos, and there's many reasons because of this, and they try to sugarcoat it. They're trying to say COVID-19 and all this other nonsense. They didn't know what the strategy was going to be. Now he's trying really hard, but it may be too late. Now, and a lot of Latinos are still resentful for him for deporting 3 million undocumented workers during the Obama administration. But hey, we're going to move on from that because, you know, he's the best. Donald Trump is evil. We can't vote for him and all this stuff. But I never heard Donald Trump's campaign say we don't need Latino voters. I never heard Donald Trump campaign saying, yeah, you know what, they're not important for an election. I never heard him say that. Call the guy. You can hate the guy all you want. I don't care. Please, sure. And don't come up with me. Oh, he said the Mexicans were no. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. That
happened 4 years ago. Get over it.
Not only did that happen 4 years ago, can you show me when the Trump campaign has said Latinos are not essential to winning a general election? That's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. Mm-hmm. If you if you prove me wrong, I'll be like, you know what, Jaime, we were wrong. But until this day, I have not seen the Trump campaign say, "Well, Latinos are not essential for us to win a general election." Joe Biden just said it. Well, not Joe Biden. Joe Biden's campaign have said it. Okay, so this article
on record too.
Yeah,
it's not even a rumor.
Yeah, so the article's Biden's Latinos outreach is under fire. I can't tell what the strategy is, and it just points out. And I want to point out something too, Jaime, and please hold your laugh, okay, Jaime, because hold it. I'm telling you. When is the left-wing media gonna stop hyping Julian Castro? Look, this needs to stop, okay? This needs to stop. Many organizations, including Politico, say that a former House Secretary of Urban Development, Julian Castro, is the most prominent Latino politician today. Julian Castro's campaign was inspirational. It's an inspiration. Julian Castro's campaign. I'm like, are you joking? What are you people smoking? Okay, what are you people smoking? If you want to talk about success,
oh man,
I'll be fair. I'll stick to left-leaning politicians. Okay, let's talk about successful campaigns. By the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is more successful than Julian Castro. Veronica Escobar from Texas is more successful than Julian Castro. Sonia Sotomayor is more successful than Julian Castro. Okay, but if you really want to stick to presidential campaigns, Jaime and I have already pointed here in M and Talk. What about Senator
many times?
What about Senator Marco Rubio? What about Ted Cruz? Jaime.
Hello.
I'll give you
Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, who are both Latino, right? But I'm going to talk about my guy, Marco Rubio, right? I'm more of a Marco Rubio guy than Ted Cruz. Marco Rubio is a son of immigrants, okay? Cuban immigrants, literally first-generation American, all right? Who is senator of Florida. Agree with his policies or not, he is still senator of Florida. A senator, one of the most prestigious office in America, other than the presidency. And Julian Castro, the highest office national level was Secretary of Urban Development and Housing. That was the highest ranking position he's ever got. He didn't even make it to the top 5 of the cabinet positions, okay? Of the top 5 important cabinet positions, okay? He got one of those, I mean, still an honorable position to be in a cabinet. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, well, he's not like a senior cabinet member.
You know, it's still, you know, it's still great. But, you know, in terms of importance, there's like 5 really important cabinet members, right?
He's a designated survivor.
And then that's the highest office he got. He went from mayor to cabinet member, okay? Marco Rubio went from assemblyman to state senator in Florida to senator of his state, okay? And then, not only that, in 2016, he made it to Super Tuesday. He made all the caucuses, all the primaries. He made it through all the debates. He made it through every single obstacle up until Super Tuesday, all right? He made it. Super Tuesday, it was only between Trump, Ted Cruz, Latino, and Marco Rubio, Latino. Julian Castro didn't even make it to the first Iowa caucus. He didn't even make it to like the primaries, goodness sake. And they're talking about inspiration? Oh my God.
Let me luster Marco Rubio's resume for a little bit. Marco Rubio was one of the most recent politicians to try to fix immigration the right way. That means Congress. Not saying that we should agree or disagree with what he was trying to implement, but that man tackled immigration reform. Where are these people now? You know, where are they? I mean, if you want to be serious about it, right? Marco Rubio, that is inspirational. Ted Cruz, inspirational. Julian Castro, are you kidding me? Talk about mediocre results.
I mean, literally, Julian Castro.
Who is Julian Castro, man?
We have an episode literally titled, Who is Julian Castro? And the reason we came up with the name because polls have shown over and over and over again, polls have shown that no one knew who Julian Castro was. There was no name recognition. His own state of Texas didn't even know who the hell he was. Okay, Latinos didn't know who he was. The Latinos were like, "Who's Ted Cruz? I mean, who's Julian Castro?" They're like, "Who's Julian Castro? Who is Julian Castro?" And that's what we came up with the title of that episode. Who is Julian Castro? And he will forever be, who is Julian Castro?
Yeah. And folks, I didn't want to get off on
the fact that they said he's a prominent Latino politician. Right. I mean, that is just wow. That's just showing you how the media doesn't consider any successful Latino, regardless of political affiliation, important because they don't have a D behind their name, because they don't have a Democrat platform, because they don't stand for the Democratic Party. Right?
They don't stand.
I mean, you want to talk about prestige? Marco Rubio is pretty much there. Okay, what about the senator from New Jersey, right? Menendez, right? I mean, what happened with him? He's been in the Senate for a couple of years now. He's a Democrat. He made it up there. Congratulations to him. But I mean, Marco Rubio is my guy because he made it farther than Julian Castro. Okay, Julian Castro quit, 2-3 months into his campaign.
But like I said, and
it's just showing you. Sorry.
I said, like, the reason I wanted to go into that tangent is because I'm just getting fed up, man. I'm just getting fed up with left-wing media and left-wing organizations. And I applaud you for trying to bring awareness to the Latino community and telling people to get involved. I applaud you for that. But don't talk about mediocrity and mediocre results. If you're trying to promote the Latino image and the fortitude of the Latino image, let's talk about real success stories like we're just pointing out. and like you want to go left is right, then yeah, Republican Latinos have been more successful in reaching higher levels of office than Democratic Latinos. It's just case improvement. Okay. I'm not saying that a Democrat Latino can become president. I'm not saying that it's never going to happen. But as of now, you guys are falling behind. Okay. So back to Joe Biden. So Joe Biden. So back to Joe Biden. So Joe Biden says we're not important, and Julian Castro has not endorsed him. Just saying.
Who is Julian Castro?
I don't know. Apparently,
Who is that guy?
He's an important endorsement.
What a lame.
So like I said, this article tried to sugarcoat a lot of the failures why the Biden campaign was not reaching out to Latinos. Like I said, COVID-19, right? He didn't spend time in the primaries a lot because he focused more on the black vote than the Latino vote. And that's true. We talked about what happened in Texas and what happened in California between Sanders and Biden. We made that distinction in MM Talk. But the question becomes now, is it too late? Is it too late? And can he get the Latino vote? And this article pointed out it's going to be really difficult. And Jaime, what did they say? Like they wanted to 65% of the Latino vote to show up in order to give him an opportunity.
Right.
Well, you're waving support, bro, and it's not going to show that way. You didn't even get that traction during the primaries. Sanders was getting a lot of the youth traction. The problem with the Sanders vote is that they didn't show up on election day to begin with, and that was one. Mm-hmm. And number two, you had three candidates that a lot of the Latinos were dividing upon, and a lot of people, I don't know, they like Bloomberg more, and Bloomberg is no longer running in the campaign, so that leaves you. And an interesting point that this article made as well is that it's not the fact, right? It's not the fact that you didn't even try. It's that you didn't even get involved. And that's why even they said Donald Trump is becoming a more attractive candidate, even amongst Latinos, because Democrats simply just didn't pay attention and they didn't even care about us. And Donald Trump, whatever your opinion is about Donald Trump is appealing to the Latino vote.
And you don't know how? Donald Trump is about jobs, the economy, and business, right? Mm-hmm. Guess what Latinos come to this country for? Majority
jobs.
Of them. Jobs, start a business, help the economy, right? I mean, don't we just celebrate Latinos for coming to the United States to have small business, to work hard? And doesn't the progressive and left-wing media and the Democrats champion Latinos as hard workers, which they are. We're not saying they're not. We are, because we are Latinos. But they champion that. And Trump is trying to say, hey, let's get business working. Let's get the economy going. Let's get jobs back to America, which will benefit the Latino community. And that's the basis of why they're coming to the country in the first place. I mean, don't you think that Trump, regardless of his policies, whether you agree with him, whether you think he's a jerk or not, I'll probably go with Trump, because Joe Biden over here, he wants to give me on welfare. And not only that, one thing we also need to point out is the fact that Joe Biden's campaign says they don't need Latinos is a slap to the face of Latino leaders, Latino progressive leaders, okay? All you Latino progressive leaders, y'all need to either get it straight. I keep seeing tweets and social media posts, and even on Telemundo and Univision talking about, oh, we're supposed to help. We should vote for Biden because he's for us. And Latino leaders advocating for Joe Biden. Latino leaders, advocating for him. Yet the campaign is saying, we don't need you guys. So what's going on, Latino leaders? Are you for him just because you hate Trump? Just because you want to be recognized? Are you desperately seeking recognition? Because of the Biden campaign doesn't care about the Latino vote to win. They're wasting energy and time trying to get Latinos to come out in the first place. It's a slap in the face for some of you progressive, liberal Latino leaders. I mean, it's like, well, you want to help, you want Latinos to vote for this guy, but this guy's telling us he don't need us. So you need some explanation to do here. You need to explain this. You liberal Latino leaders need to explain this. Honestly, I'm not going to even answer this question. You need to explain it. How is it that you're championing Biden to the Latino community. You're telling the raza to vote for this man. And this man's campaign literally is saying, we don't need Latinos to win. We don't need you guys. So if we don't need you guys, if they don't need us, like we just posted a couple of days, that means that they don't need us in policymaking in the future. They're not going to care about our opinion down the road. They're just using the Latino marketing strategy just for political stunt. And that's sad. You progressive Latino leaders need to answer this question and this dilemma. I want answers. I'm sorry. I need answers, Eddie.
Yeah, so you liberal Latinos and all you guys support Biden, please comment below on this topic. Why are you supporting Biden when clearly he doesn't see you as part of the formula to basically win the general election? And here's where we're going to wrap up the program, right? So,
and before we wrap up, sorry, one more thing we forgot to mention is literally all last year, 2019, all we've heard in the primary is the Latino vote, the voting bloc. It's going to be the largest non-white voting bloc this year. Talk, we've been skeptical on the turnout of that bloc. We're not denying that it's a large bloc, a voting bloc, but we're skeptical on the turnout, right? Put your money where your mouth is, right?
Yeah, we'll see. So
if the Democrats are saying Latinos are going to be the largest and they're promoting this, even the political article, and then Joe Biden comes out and says, we don't need you guys. Yeah, that's a big conflict right there, right? That's another big conflict. And we'll wrap it up with that, Eddie. Sorry.
So once again, thank you for tuning in to Talk. We appreciate your support. Leave those comments below. I'm Eddie Marmolejo.
I'm Jaime Moreno.
Remember, it's Talk, and we're tired of it too.